Ladies and gentlemen, after watching my UPS driver make circles around my house for about 6 hours today, my Pixel 10 Pro Fold is finally here. We're going to be doing an unboxing and first impressions in this video. This is not going to go super in depth, but I will do a handful of device sort of like size comparisons as we go. We're going to try to see if there's anything about the Pixel 10 Pro Fold that feels or looks appreciably different from the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. I don't think that that's really going to happen. There's not going to be a whole lot there, but there will be at least a few things. Sliding this sheath off. I like how they do this like all cardboard thing. I definitely approve of that, and I like the sort of like the little sketch of the device on the front here. There is your Pixel 10 Pro Fold. Let's just set that aside for a moment. We have a USB-C to C cable, and we have some documentation. I did go with the jade color, which is kind of funny because I said when they kind of revealed it that I wasn't really wild about it, that I didn't like it at all. And then my wife looked at it and she liked it. So that's what I ended up going with. But I'll tell you, in person, in this lighting, this looks like gray. I mean, I think it looks a little bit more jade in the camera, but that looks like gray in person. So if you're worried that it's going to be like a really sort of bright green color that's going to make it difficult to use a case or whatever it might be, you're fine. No problems there at all. And this just looks like silver. This really does not look how I thought it was going to look at all. You can see the inner screen here, pre-fold. We have not folded yet, and we're going to fold right now, so that's never going to look as good as it did right then and right there. Let's set these two side by side, 9 Pro Fold and 10 Pro Fold. In terms of thickness, there is no appreciable difference at all. They are basically identical. In terms of camera bump, how much that sticks out, that looks very similar as well. Am I crazy? Does the 10 Pro Fold look like it stands a little taller? Measured with a caliper, I think that's just an optical illusion. But one thing that isn't an optical illusion, if you look over here next to the hinge, you can see that on the 10 Pro Fold, that area is quite a bit smaller. And if we flip these devices over, we're going to turn this one on here in just a second, you'll see that that is very true on this cover display. It has widened out quite a bit because that hinge area has shrunk. And then even beyond just that, look how far the hinge itself sticks out from the side of the device. And that has also been pretty greatly reduced. They are using some sort of new hinge technology that is apparently gearless. There are no gears in that hinge. I don't know how that works, but apparently that's a thing. Again, just optical illusions are catching me. It looks like that the 10 is taller, but it's not. It actually is, it's the same. But for some reason, it did look taller sitting here on the table. Hola, bonjour. While this is going through this setup process, just in case you wanted to see some comparison here to the original Pixel Fold, they have really shrunk that hinge area now, much smaller. It's the same form factor, you know, compared to the 9 Pro Fold. So nothing really of note to mention there, but we will quickly just talk about the width of this screen. So if we come over here to the 9 Pro Fold and we measure from bezel to bezel, like inside the bezel, so the actual size of the screen, that's like 65 millimeters. If you come over here, it's like 67 millimeters. And if you're over here, you're at about 68 millimeters. So not a huge difference in terms of how much this thing has been widened out, but it'll still be a nice improvement. Just for one, the aesthetics. Well, we're continuing on this setup process. This is the Galaxy Z Fold 7 over here next to it. I think that this would be interesting, kind of, if we sort of flip this device over and maybe we flip this device over so we can get a flat look. You can see that Google really is not trying to compete in the world of razor thinness. And they're also not really competing in the world of weight either. This device is basically the same weight as it was last year, and it's, what is it, something like 30 or 40 grams heavier than the Fold 7. So that's definitely something that some people will be concerned with. I do also want to show you the measurement of the width of the Z Fold 7. I think that's interesting. So we'll try to get close to what we had last time. Something like 67-ish millimeters over here on the Fold 7. It's about 66 millimeters. Everybody always thinks because of the shape the appearance, something about these devices, that the Fold 7 screen is like weirdly narrow. It's not. I mean, it's taller, but we're talking about millimeters. It's basically identical to the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. So if you were okay with that thickness, very similar on the Z Fold 7, and slightly wider now with the 10 Pro Fold. We're gonna let this do its thing here quickly. So as usual, this device has done a fantastic job of just sort of setting itself up and looking identical to how it looked on my old device, my Pixel 9 Pro Fold. And this is going to be essentially the exact same scenario, the exact same experience in many, many ways as I've been using Material 3 Expressive already on the 9 Pro Fold. Although there are some small differences here in the camera application. This looks a little bit different. It looks like we've kind of gotten our Material 3 redesign on the 10, but not on the 9. Here's an interesting one. Watch the animation as this plays on both of these devices. I'll do them one at a time. Look at the blur that's occurring on the 10 versus on the 9. Subtle, but that is at least another small difference. Honestly, guys, the only other big hardware difference on this device compared to last year's model is the fact that they have added something called Pixel Snap. This is basically Apple's MagSafe, but for Pixel devices. And you can see that is where that is going to snap into place. As you can see, this is the official Pixel Snap magnetic grip. I've been using this for a little while now. I do wish that they had given us a color that matched. All they sell it in is moonstone, so that's a little bit strange, but there it is. It's on there. The connection does feel pretty strong. If we want to use a battery bank, it looks like that is going to be totally operable. Look at all that extra space you've got up there. Samsung, please do indeed take notes on that one. We are now charging our device, and we've about doubled the thickness, but still that is an option, and I'm really pleased to see this being an option on this device. If we open this back up, you can see here that this will operate as a kickstand just fine, and of course it will work great as just a grip as well. So this is probably how I'm going to use this device for the foreseeable future. No case, just sort of using this MagSafe grip. But I do want to quickly point out one, or sort of highlight one case, and you guys probably knew where I was going. I've had great success and great luck talking about these fiber-borne cases, and this is another one, thin-borne. This time is what they're calling it. Sometimes the name is fiber-borne, sometimes it's thin-borne. Not exactly sure why it changes, but here is the thin-borne case for the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. And what this is going to do is it's going to give you a little bit more grip, and of course you're still going to be able to use that MagSafe grip, and actually that might be a little bit stronger, the Pixel Snap. I shouldn't say MagSafe, it's Pixel Snap. That might even be a little bit stronger this time around. So it's going to give you a little bit of grip there on the back of the device, but it's not going to add a ton of thickness. You can see how thin that is. It's aramid fiber. It's basically Kevlar is like a different brand name of it. You can see there how the cutouts are looking. Everything looks pretty decent. Looks a little bit screwy right there. Are we just not over all the way? That might be what that was. I might just not be seated completely, but that is definitely a really solid option. I'll talk more about this case later on, because probably, honestly, what I'm going to do is I'll probably bounce back and forth between using it and not using it and just see what I feel kind of fits my use case better. So I'll give you an update. We'll probably do like a 48 hours later type thing, and I'll talk about this case a little bit more after that. But I mean, it's thin-borne. You guys have seen me use these cases for a while. You know what you're getting yourself into. I didn't realize there was a piece of adhesive right here, and I hadn't taken off the cover. That's why things weren't sitting correctly. So that was my fault. Good thing I got that before I published the video. Here's a thing I wanted to check out, though. The 9 Pro Fold, let me grab it actually. When you would put it on a stand like this to wirelessly charge, sometimes you would get it to start to charge for like a second, but then eventually it's going to stop charging. And the reason for that is because the wireless charging coil is positioned in such a way that you needed like a riser. You needed to have this thing sit a bit taller. I literally had to 3D print one to be able to use this. I want to see if that is still a thing with the 10 Pro Fold. I have a suspicion that maybe they've addressed this. Let's find out. We're going to set it on there. We are charging. But here's the question. Do we remain charging? And look at that, guys. We're still charging. So you know what that means? They've moved the coil. They fixed it. Here is, speaking about 3D printed things, the wireless charging tablet stand I've been using with my Z Fold 7 for the last little bit. Can I use it on my Pixel 10 Pro Fold? I absolutely can. And even more beautifully, I can have it opened up, and we are still charging. I might be most excited about this change of anything so far. I've been putting a pin underneath there to be a little riser, so this is great news. I did mention that this thing does have a new hinge, so I want to take a second and just see, do I notice anything different at all? Can you hear this, by the way? Can you hear this noise? Yeah, that's been going on for months. Not really sure what to make of that, but that's definitely a thing. Let's compare it to this. For one thing, there's no weird noise, so that's good. I think that the new hinge feels smoother throughout. I think that would be the way that I would describe it. This sort of changes. Like, it has a certain amount of resistance, but then like there's a lot of resistance, then kind of not very much, and then more resistance, and then it just kind of gives up about right there. Whereas this feels very linear. It feels very consistent. Obviously, there's the most resistance there to get to this point, but then it stiffens up, but then right there it gives up. Right there it gets much easier to open, and it just sort of smoothly goes the rest of the way. So there's definitely some difference here to this new hinge. Now, of course, we're not going to do like a full camera breakdown here, but I did want to look at a handful of shots. You can see the phone over here on the right-hand side. So this is the 10 Pro Fold, and we're going to compare this to the 9 Pro Fold. And there are some pretty big differences, I feel like. The 10 does look a little bit like brighter, more colorful maybe. It definitely looks brighter to me. Let's kind of zoom in on some of these details. Let's see if we can tell anything about noise. Get a good look at that. A little bit of noise on EV there. If we go to the 9 Pro Fold, maybe there's a little bit less noise. Maybe not the direction you would expect that to go in, but I think the biggest thing is that the 10 is definitely brighter. This is a quick 5x shot, 10 Pro Fold versus 9 Pro Fold. These are the same sensor, and I suspect they're going to look very, very similar. But again, we're brighter on the 10 Pro Fold. We are definitely brighter. Ultra wide, I think it's the same sensor again as well, and it looks exactly the same. So that would be kind of what I would expect. Although, down here, this is looking really rough. Now, look, the fringes of an ultra wide, that's where you're going to get your noise. That's where you're going to have the most problems. But it looks worse, right? Like, neither one looks great, but I think the 10 looks worse. Did they downgrade the ultra wide as well, and I just don't remember that? Here's a 2x shot, so we're trying to kind of stress the primary sensor a little bit, and I do think that that is a pretty significant win for the 10 Pro Fold. Look at the complete lack of detail here on the Pixel 8 Pro box back here. We can actually read that. So this is sort of a weird situation. As we're going through these, it's like sometimes I prefer the old one, sometimes I prefer the new one. This is the 10. And this is the 9. These are remarkably similar. But once again, am I seeing more noise? Let's come down here to my plant and my guitar strap. This is looking kind of noisy. Look at all the noise down here. And then coming back to the 9, yeah, that's really weird. There are some major differences in the processing. Now, as this is just a quick first impressions video, we're not going to go super deep into like all of the different software features, but I do love in their little tips application that they kind of just tell you what's new. And there are like a good amount of new things. I don't know that I see anything that I'm like, wow, that's the selling feature. If you guys remember when they announced this device, I was waiting for something that would be so cool on the software side that I wouldn't care that the hardware was basically the same. Like I said, I don't think that really happened. So Magic Q is a big one. And what this basically does is it's going to try to like pull contextual information off your device and present it to you at opportune times, like in phone calls or in messages. You can see here someone asking if they're free for lunch and asking about some restaurant that Ben told us about, and it's going to find that on your phone and present that information to you and then help you create a calendar event. I've heard that that maybe doesn't work as well as you would think that it would. Magic Q and Gboard as well, kind of again just surfacing information. Camera Coach, using Gemini to kind of help you frame your photos. I don't know that that's something I'm ever going to use. Auto Best Take. That's fine. Magical editing in Google Photos. Let's see if that's there. So in theory, what we're supposed to be able to do is rather than like circling things and then making edits that way, which that for some reason just did not seem to register. Let's zoom in. I'll use my finger instead of the mouse. Well, that okay, so eventually that started to work, not off to the best of starts. You're supposed to be able to, rather than doing that, just speak to your phone. So let's just try this. Remove the pink ball from the foreground. It should know what I'm talking about. It should identify that pink ball and it should remove it with me not having to do anything. Let's see if it did it. And there it did. You can see there's the ball and it is now gone. So how cool, how useful that's going to be. I think if there is anything that they did announce that I thought was like the closest to being something that I thought was a really like awesome feature, that was probably it. Create music in Recorder. Not going to do that. Voice translate. Pixel Journal, Notebook LM, more Notebook LM stuff. What about the Pixel Journal? Maybe this is something that I'll try. Write about your day, get customized writing inspiration, and track how you're feeling. So it's basically like a journaling application that has AI smarts built into, and it's supposed to do things like that. I'm gonna have to test all this stuff out. This is a first impressions. And if I kind of want to wrap everything up from here, what I'll tell you is this does seem like a little bit of a mixed bag to me, right? So on the hardware side, there's things I like and there's things that I am just kind of indifferent about. Most of this phone is identical to this phone. And, it is what it is. It's not particularly exciting. I do like that they've added the Pixel Snap thing. I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of the fact that the charging coil is now appropriately positioned, which means your accessories are going to be more operational. My stand, it was literally sitting on a charging stand the entire time I was filming that. That is definitely really cool. The camera stuff is weird, right? Is there more noise in low light? But the 2x zoom looked a little better. Photos look brighter, which I think is positive thing. I think there's a good middle ground there between where Pixels were and where like Honor and Oppo phones are. They go a little bit too bright. Honor phones are a little bit too bright for me. I think there's a good middle ground to be found there. Maybe this is closer. The ultra wide looked strangely worse though. So it's just a little bit of a mixed bag for me, and it's way too early to be like rendering an actual judgment. This is a first impressions video. We're going to check back in a couple of days and kind of see where we are on certain things and kind of go from there. But I do want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think about what you're seeing so far? Have you ordered one? Have you received it? What have you noticed in those early moments? Again, hit those comments down below. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.